Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Noisera, Freedom Faction, whichever one you prefer, and I have titled this episode, Collapsing the Old World Order. I know, it kind of sounds cheesy, but a lot of the things we're going over in this episode, it is definitely going to be heavy, really heavy. I wanted to play some kind of calm, assuring music so that whenever we get into that heavy stuff, we kind of understand what is actually going on. We're going to be continuing taking a look at things such as Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Jose, Hurricane Maria, and even things like martial law, the Georgia Guidestones, HARP, weather modification, the new world order. Really, it is rearing its ugly head. We are in the eye of the storm. There is really no other way to say it. There is really no other way to say it. It's going to be a wild ride of an episode. I can tell you that for sure. So before we get into things, quick updates. I definitely want to point you guys in the direction of the website, factionsoffreedom.jimdo.com. We're always putting out articles. I have yet to make a trailer for the episodes or for the website and for social media to where it shows you guys how to get to the articles that aren't put on social media. That's the only way to explain it. The website specific articles, and sometimes I post them up on social media, but I'll explain that for you guys later on. And also, we actually reached 100,000 followers. Surprisingly, 100,000 leaders on Instagram. We got the Facebook page basically back to 6,000, which is crazy. For those people that are listening now, why that's crazy is because during one of the shootings, we played a video. We posted a lot of controversial content. One of the videos went viral on Facebook. It got like over 200,000 views. And what ended up happening with that is people started coming to the page and leaving me bad reviews, and I started getting basically attacked. They took down the page. It was crazy. It was a whole deal. But now that we're back to 6,000, it's crazy. So there's all kinds of other great things going on. But with that being said, let's jump right into this episode because it's going to be a heavy one. I don't want to sit here and try to stroke my ego. I want to get you guys aware of what's really going on. So one of the things that we're basically going to be harping on, again, no pun intended, one of the things we're going to be sticking to throughout the entirety of this episode is things like climate change, things like Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, Maria, Jose, Katia, and everything else. What comes with that? What's going on? Why are we having earthquakes in Japan? Why are we having earthquakes in Mexico? Why are we having earthquakes in California? Why are we having the whole West Coast basically burn up? What is going on? Somebody mentioned to me, hey, maybe this is what happens whenever CERN is starting to act up. We really haven't heard anything about them. Maybe these are some of the geological effects of them, opening portals or colliding atoms and particles. Maybe this is this. But, how would that explain how it's happening on a global scale? You see, so what we're going to be looking at is what goes beyond weather manipulation. Yes, they can manipulate the weather, but what goes beyond that? Now, before we get into this, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about as always, we're going to be talking about the Georgia Guidestones to set the foundation for the episode. Because I think this is something that people don't really see taking place or really understand what's happening. The other day, I put up an article about how Swedish people are ordered to stop reproducing to reduce climate change. This is not the first time that we've actually heard this notion. They've actually been trying to get people to stop reproducing for a while. This is one of the reasons why they're polluting our DNA and our biology so bad. There's a lot of sterility going on in developing countries. It's really crazy. But one of the reasons why we're addressing this, looking at things like the Georgia Guidestones, is to talk about how it is so much in alignment with Agenda 21, with Agenda 2030, and everything else that we see taking place here. You see. So when looking at things like the Georgia Guidestones, you got to understand they have only 10 principles. Only 10 principles. Right? But the Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, they have They have 18 sustainable developmental goals. But the reason why these things are important is because what we're going to be looking at is the environment and how we as humans versus the environment are considered a detrimental thing. And for people who don't know what the Georgia Guidestones are, the best way to explain them is they're the definition of the Illuminati to me. This is what the Illuminati, this is another one of those declarations where the Illuminati is telling you what they indeed try to do, or what they indeed want. The 10 principles are: 1. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. 2. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. 3. Unite humanity with a living new language. Rule passion, faith, and tradition, and all things with tempered reason. 5. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court, the UN. And this is one of the reasons why I think this is important that we get this on record, is because this was put up in the 80s. You know, we're stopping at 6. This was put up in the 80s. This concept of a world government. So this is, again, nothing new. And I'm just going to read real quick again from some of these. Let's get to goal number 6 over here in the Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. This is from the United Nations, Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And it says, Goal 1, end poverty in all forms everywhere. Goal 2, end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Goal 3, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Goal 4, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Goal 5, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Goal 6, ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. So again, they're trying to make it this global understanding, this global idea, this global consciousness, so to speak. Right there, over 100 nations signed nuclear weapons ban opposed by U.S. and others. Now, there's a lot of controversy surrounding that, but what we have to look at is the establishing of the New World Order. As I said before, collapsing the old world order so that they can create this New World Order. That's why we see so many of these different things happening throughout the entirety of the world. And I know it sounds silly, but it's got to be incremental. But I'll get into this. Let me finish this list right here. Number 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. Wouldn't we all be so lucky? 8, balance personal rights with social duties. This is where we get social justice warriors and other things like that. 9, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Be not a cancer. And number 10 is be not a cancer on earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. Now, why is this important? Why is this important? Because this is it's written in so many different languages. It's centered in Georgia. It's meant to act as a compass, a calendar, and there's all kinds of. If you know anything about Freemasons and architecture, this is what they do. They build these types of things. They make these types of things. They leave these here. Why are they trying to say be in accordance with the nature? Because again, jumping back to Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development, they are trying to say that we are a cancer upon this planet. You see, so yes, they can manipulate the weather. This is what we need to get out of here, get out in the open right off the bat. Yes, they can manipulate the weather, but what comes with manipulating the weather? Right? Things like this, Swedish people being ordered to stop reproducing. And I know this comes from Sputnik News, and people have problems with that. But let's continue to take a look at what is going on in the world. You see, why are we talking about things like weather modification and geoengineering? Why is it illegal for you to have solar panels on your home thanks to lobbying? We'll get into that as well. Why is the Pacific Northwest documenting metallic fibers falling from the sky? Morgellons, we'll also get into that. There's a lot of different things going on, and I think, you know, looking at how all of this is one big soup of crazy, one just thing after the next. It's what comes after that we need to focus on. Yes, you know, we are being destroyed, we are being attacked from every single angle. No, there is no lie about that. But what are they trying to do? You see. So with weather modification, geoengineering, HARP, cloud seeding, and chemtrails, I don't think people noticed, whenever Elon Musk launched that military space plane right before Irma back on September 7th. These air quotes natural disasters, they give them a way to implement their own form of control. We'll get into that as well. Things like implementing this martial law, FEMA, Red Cross, the National Guard, the Navy, Army, Police, Homeland Security, etc. You name it. That's why this article right here, Beyond Harvey and Irma, Militarizing Homeland Security in the Climate Change Era, is important. These types of things and all of this, because we'll get into China, we'll get into Russia, we'll get into Venezuela, we'll get into everything else that is kind of happening. This is important. Whenever we saw them rolling out military amphibious vehicles in Florida, and as well as deploying those MRAPs in Georgia, this is again militarizing this event. We also talked about politicizing, with climate change, Bill Gates and how he thinks, this is of course it's connected to climate change, hurricane season. Well, this is what comes after, how they're able to manipulate the narrative. What does this mean? This just in Harvey alone, we had to deal with the Texas Arkema plant, ExxonMobil, the Southern Texas nuclear plant in the port, and even the nation's largest oil refinery, Motiva, closed. That's just in Texas. Okay. My whole thoughts about this is, like I said, trying to collapse the old world order, shutting down fossil fuels, shutting down gas, shutting down petroleum, shutting down oil. Well, some of the numbers that we'll get into as well are crazy. When looking at this, our debt was at 20 trillion. Rothschild pulled his money for monetary accommodation, and I think this is what we're dealing with right now. $700 billion in military spending, another $700 billion in unpaid mortgages balance in the Harvey and Irma areas. $290 billion in damages, not mortgages, damages. There's a lot of different things going on when looking at just this issue alone. How are we going to get our money back? Let's talk about that. How are we going to get, where's the money going to come back from the reconstruction? Donald Trump donated like $15 billion. Does $15 billion sound anything equivalent to that? All these hand-in-hand hurricane relief telethons that these celebrities are trying to put on. Do you think they'll help? Do you think the money will get to them? Look at how fast people in Mexico responded to their disasters. They literally had to say, we have enough volunteers, thank you guys. But here we literally do not know where our money goes. Here in America, we have some problems. So what comes with all this weather modification, this geoengineering, this climate change, this global warming? They're able to politicize this. They want to create some areas that are uninhabitable. And they want to be uninhabitable simply because they can control them. So they can monitor them. I mean, what is Roswell? A closed off area. Yeah, I'm not saying it's uninhabitable, but the concept of it, of just being a section within a country that you cannot go into. Its areas are protected. That's a national forest. They want to create us. They want to create these areas that we can't go into. These green zones, so to speak. It's like when we're looking at it, we can't understand that they want to try to get us into these population centers. That's the idea. More easily controlled. These people who have these houses that are devastated by this flood. I mean, look. Let's take a look at what's happening in St. Martin. Devastation. Barbuda is gone after Hurricane Jose. Bermuda and the Bahamas, they have been wasted. Look at Florida is still starting to recover. Half of the states without power. Puerto Rico is going to be months without power. They want to get us into these places that they can take their time and rebuild. Look at Chernobyl, look at Fukushima. The residents are just moving back in there after 6 years. You see. That's what I'm talking about. They're using these natural disasters to implement their agendas to get us closer in. FEMA has a picture, or at least they have. I think it's FEMA. I think it's FEMA. There is a picture going on out there on the internet that shows. I think it's the FEMA district maps that shows what we're dealing with. How they want to break up the country into different places. But even then, we have to look at how they are trying to move us closer inwards. Yeah, these will be districts. Yeah, these will be areas. But we won't. They'll figure out a way to push us in. I mean, look at what's going on with these hurricanes and the islands. This is a very small map. Let's see if we can blow it up. Nope. Okay. Anyway. Well, right here we have California, Nevada, and Arizona as District 9. District 10 is Washington, Arkansas, or Washington, Alaska, Oregon, and Idaho. District, what is this? District 6 is New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana, and so forth. And it breaks up the country in that different way. What is going to be in these districts? This is where you start to get a Hunger Games-esque view of what's going on in the world, or these large, long-term plans that these people have. They want to be able to destabilize everything using these natural disasters so that they can control these areas. Talking about things such as production and consumption. Global warming and climate change are going to really become hot topics after this. Like I've been trying to reiterate, if they can turn Texas blue, that's going to be the core of the country. It's going to radiate out. If they can get Texas green, so to speak, really, I shouldn't say blue. If they can get Texas green, thinking about the energy, thinking about the earth, thinking about harmony, thinking about things such as these Agenda 21 and Georgia Guidestones, where we're leaving room for nature, living in harmony with the earth. But this is the whole sham. They want to try to sell us free energy. And I'll get into all that stuff later on, too, realizing this is all going on, realizing that they're trying to slowly use things like this weather modification to implement this agenda, this this new world order that they want to live in. That's what we have to look at. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm going to try to get through what each of these hurricanes has done to the country. And yes, it has been coastal, but like I said, I haven't really been paying attention to the things that are going on the West Coast with the fires. We're also going to be talking about things like the 6.1 earthquake that's 200 miles away from Fukushima. And I'm going to try to double back and explain the implementing of martial law in these countries, or in these states, and other things like that. There's so many different things happening right now. But we're going to take a break, and I'll be right back. This is Freedom Faction, the Fractions of Freedom. Stay tuned. All right, and we are back. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really trying to do this new media thing proper. Really am. Trying to expand at every single chance that I can. Like I said, music is a very important part of what we're doing here, and I think that people need to understand that, as times go on, we've got to figure out ways to take a step back, appreciate things, really look at what's happening. Sometimes I don't really even feel worthy covering some of the stuff because of how epic it is. The times we are living in, really, that's why the episode is called, Collapsing the Old World Order. We're looking at a lot of crazy things. I didn't think I would be seeing some of this stuff in my day. I thought, later. But it's wild. It is wild, the types of things that are going on, and I'm trying to keep up with it, diversifying the content, giving you episodes, mini-casts, interviews, and the like, everything else. Post on social media, obviously networking with other teams, because that's what we do. We come together. We make things work. Okay. Sorry. Getting excited. So let's get back into this. I told you guys that we were going to be talking about what comes after the weather modification, implementing things like martial law, the 6.1 earthquake near Fukushima. Something in my mind told me that we were going to be dealing with Fukushima with all this chaos that's going on. Something told me. I don't know how to explain it, but it is crazy. It really is crazy looking at everything else that we have to deal with. So like I said, militarizing these hurricanes and also politicizing them to a degree as well. What comes after? With Hurricane Harvey, we had to deal with the Texas Arkema plant, ExxonMobil, La Porte, Motiva closing down, the STP nuclear plant. And now we're hearing how they're actually spraying nailed. The Air Force is announcing chemtrails, that they're actually doing these things. Why is this crazy? Because they're trying to say that the mosquitoes there, they could be toxic. Right there. U.S. Air Force sprays Harvey-stricken Texas with a controversial chemical. Guess what it is? And we've talked about this. C-130s, C-130Hs being equipped with chemicals, chemtrails basically, spraying nailed. Spraying nailed. The same thing that they sprayed in Florida, ironically enough. They sprayed this stuff in Florida. And not only that, but we found that it started to have, it created neurodevelopmental problems. People were having neuromuscular issues as well. It was creating, it wasn't microcephaly like we were being told. It was creating different problems. But now they're spraying this stuff. That's why all of this is crazy. It's a cocktail of chemicals. I wanted to try to put it together for you guys in an episode, where we're looking at this stuff. I've listed how many different chemicals that were at the Arkema plant. It's like 32 that were open. And then you got ExxonMobil. This American Fukushima is what we're talking about. And this is just within Texas. Okay? So let me get into this article. It's from the Daily Sheeple. I put it up September 15th. It says the U.S. Air Force is spraying 6 million acres in Texas with potentially harmful insecticides as the state tries to rid itself of swarms of mosquitoes nesting in flooded areas after Hurricane Harvey. The work began this past weekend with the military using low-flying C-130 cargo planes to douse 3 counties with nailed and organophosphate OP insecticide, according to routers. Quote, due to large amounts of standing polluted water, populations of pest insects that can transmit these diseases are increasing significantly. And that's what we're talking about. I'll try to play for you guys a video where, they said that even in Texas, these places, some of these homes, they have toxins within them. The floodwater, they carry toxins. That's why I'm considering this an American Fukushima. And strangely enough, we had the same thing happening in Fukushima, where the radiation that is soaked is just churning. But getting back into this article, it says Captain Jeff Kelly, Air Force spokesman, said in a statement, quote, this poses a health risk to rescue workers and residents of Houston. Post-Harvey aerial mosquito spraying 6,000 acres of greater Houston set for Thursday night. And that was put up September 14th. You guys can go look that up on Twitter from Todd Ackerman. It says at CronMed. It's intended that the spraying will prevent mosquito-borne diseases and prevent emergency response slowdowns by workers inundated by biting insects. You see, again, uninhabitable areas. I know this is simple, but this could just be a trial run. These things are being brought over with the hurricane. The standing polluted water, as they talked about, What could that be attracting? Say these mosquitoes. Some of these mosquitoes that even Bill Gates himself and Google have modified. There's a patent out there. I've covered this as well on the show. There's a patent out there that talks about how they are indeed genetically modifying mosquitoes. Say one of these genetically modified mosquitoes goes near the Texas Arkema plant. One of these irradiated plants, right? It becomes itself irradiated, creates some kind of mutated biodisease. We don't have the vaccines, we don't have the antibiotics, and this is something else that the World Health Organization is saying that we're running out of, antibiotics. We don't have enough ways to try to fight these superbugs. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about talking about nature fighting back. This is the post-weather modification. This is the geoengineering. Humans, we think we've been here. We can come in. We can, make places our own, and that's it. Well, whenever they modify the weather and they have this power to do this, not only are they mocking God, and playing God, manipulating our world, but they're also trying to control us. You see, let's see if I could try to play this clip for you guys, and then we'll get into all this other stuff that's going on with these hurricanes, because we gotta understand what is happening. We have to see what is really taking place here, because I want to talk about Fukushima as well. Right there, boom. Texas calls in Air Force to fight mosquitoes. Again, Air Force using C-130 cargo planes spraying insecticides. Yeah, the same thing. Right here, test reveals floodwater in Houston homes contain toxins. Let's take a listen.
That water was just too much for this road. The ground gave way.
This is your home.
Yeah, one of our trailers.
Homes washed away. People here live in RVs and makeshift shelters. Elizabeth Victorio didn't know it, but her community is between two former toxic waste dumps, both flooded.
I'm kind of concerned a little bit because we live here and we have a water well and we use that water to give to our animals and also to bathe in it.
They are called Superfund sites, places the Environmental Protection Agency is responsible for cleaning hazardous materials. It monitors the soil and water. There are dozens in Texas, 13 flooded so badly officials haven't been able to check on them, although the EPA says it has done aerial surveillance.
They have restraints on their ability to check out some of them just simply because of the water.
The area behind this fence here is known as the Highlands Acid Pit. It was used.
That's crazy. They still haven't been able to check them out. There's so many, and they still haven't been able to check them out. That's in Crosby, Texas. So basically, what we're dealing with, is a soup of chemicals being unleashed upon the country. There's really, for me, no real way to look at it. And then that you talk about them spraying nailed and more chemtrails and everything else that's going on. It's crazy. It really is. With Hurricane Irma, I think a lot of people right out of the bat kind of thought, Hurricane Harvey was way too rough, way too intense, way too sudden. It really caught people off guard. So I think right off the bat, people thought it was, or knew that it was modified, that this was something strange, that what is this? This is coming out of nowhere, literally. And so with that, people kind of got out. They paid attention to what happened in Harvey, and they left. There's no real other way to say it. People did kind of catch on that Hurricane Irma was manipulated because it feels like it did not more so damage. There's damage at both places, but it did a significant amount of damage. You see, and so basically, what I'm trying to say, is look at how it leveled Barbuda. It's decimated, gone, just destroyed. 391,000 people without power. No food, looting, salvaging in the Caribbeans of St. Martin's. We've played that clip for you guys as well, where they're throwing people out. And this isn't in Florida, this is in St. Martin's. And that's what's crazy is this is going on. There's destabilization going on everywhere. This isn't just an isolated event. You got to think, what about these people? Where are they going to go? Right there, Irma aftermath. St. Martin residents are now just struggling to survive. Where are they going to go? Where are these people going to migrate to? We actually got some reports from people that were being smuggled out from St. Martin's and from the Virgin Islands, from these places that have been messed up, and they just got smuggled out by the military into America. You know, we also had reports about how people that were able to get away and were trying to rescue people, the volunteers, you know, they were actually being commandeered. There's a lot of sketchy stuff going on with that as well. You know, and the EPA saying that toxic chemicals could leak as Irma hits Florida. They quietly let that, you know, go underneath the radar. They quietly let that go underneath the radar. It happened September 11th, ironically enough. The EPA, you know, the Environmental Protection Agencies, says they can't guarantee 100% that there will be no contamination from heavily contaminated toxic waste sites following Hurricane Irma. You know, and that's where we have Turkey Point and St. Lucie, I think it is. These two nuclear plants that were in the way, that could have some of the chemicals again just being thrown around. These Superfund sites, defined by the EPA. You know, same here in Houston. Again, American Fukushima. I cannot reiterate that enough. But what comes after this? What are they doing? Like I said, martial law in the Virgin Islands. Look at what's happening right here in St. Martin. Just leveled, just destroyed. Creating uninhabitable zones to where people can't go back and go live there. To where they don't have a say. To where they have to, like I said, where are these people going? To where they have to come back or come into America, come in or migrate in here. All these people can't live on the coast. They're going to push us further inland, where housing is cheap, where everything is air quotes convenient. Your health will be, you know, significantly worse, but this is what I'm saying. They want to create uninhabitable zones to where they can monitor them, keep them for themselves. They want to act as if they are the saviors of the planet. Does that make sense now? I hope some of this is making sense. Whenever we heard, I think it was the mayor of Florida saying how this is going to be a nuclear hurricane when referring to Hurricane Irma. Because there's more to this than we think. There are a lot of different factors involved in just this one incident. Now, it's again what comes after, right, that we need to focus on, and I'll get into that as well, because there's already some reports happening of it right there. Irma is being described as a nuclear hurricane that has left one island practically uninhabitable. That's exactly what we're talking about. Leveled, decimated. Category 5 storm just leveling places. You see. So let me get into this. You know, this is again, because I'm kind of drawing on, getting excited, and I'm trying to build up anticipation for it, because this is something that piques my interest, that I think a lot of people aren't really understanding how monumental it is. Right there, the Pacific Northwest resident who is documenting metallic fibers falling from the sky. Why is this important? How many chemicals have we just been talking about in passing, when looking at this? So these metallic fibers, you know, and again, this is where you have to do research into what they're spraying in relation to the chemtrails, you know, with aluminum, barium, and strontium, and other chemicals that they have, and other things that they put in there as well. It's crazy. But what are these metallic fibers that are growing, or that are falling from the sky? This is Morgellons. Okay, there's no other way to get around it. This is Morgellons. This is a man-made disease, and some of this stuff could be out there. You see, let me get into this. This is an article from Waking Times. I put it up September 19th. It's by Buck Rogers, who's a staff writer, and it says this: as the term geoengineering creeps ever more into the public consciousness, people are being persuaded that weather modification schemes will play an important role in public safety as a response to climate change. Most people are behind the curve on this issue, though, as independent journalists and private individuals have for years been documenting what is happening in our skies, as I've been saying throughout the entirety of this episode. For the last several years, a Washington State resident has been documenting geoengineering activity in the skies over the Olympic Peninsula, reporting on unnatural cloud formations, atmospheric spraying, and electromagnetic warfare testing by the Navy. In addition to the obvious manipulations of the sky at large, she has documented an abundance of white, mysterious, fibrous materials falling from the sky. In a post on September 6, 2017, V. Susan Ferguson shares the following images along with an explanation of where her research in this matter led to. You see. So let's take a look at some of these images. Just little, they look like hairs, little metallic filings. But it's, again, what could be contained in these filings. As I said before, with the mosquitoes, the genetically engineered or genetically modified mosquitoes as provided by Bill Gates or John D. Rockefeller, or one of the Rockefellers, whoever is out there manipulating these mosquitoes, who's to say they don't go to one of these Superfund sites, one of these places that's been irradiated or has all kinds of chemicals in it, and that mosquito doesn't just infect you. It's already got Zika live virus within it, but now it's got some weird chemical thing in you, messing with its entire biochemistry. But now let's get back into this. These metallic fibers that this lady is documenting. Regarding the photo above, she notes the photo was taken by me a few months ago. Please note the patterns that look like spikes or limbs off of a stem. These remind me very much of the kind of cloud formations I often found on NASA Worldview. Now, this photo is enlarged and contrast enhanced to show the structural details. All the photos were taken at home within the last 2 years. The substances appeared as a wiry dust covering everything outside, and occasionally inside. So somehow it found its way into the ventilation and inside of her house. When magnified, the images reveal fine white fibrous materials, of unknown material. And again, you know, this is stuff that they could be spraying. We don't know. They're not disclosing this. They're just saying, well, you know, we're going to be spraying nailed. We're going to be spraying these different chemicals. Don't worry about it. We're going to be trying to fight these mosquitoes, or we're going to be trying to fight the weather. We want to have it to where we can control it. Speculation on the material and the methods of the dispersal of this type of event is not limited to the Washington state. There have been similar incidents around the world in recent years. A small publication in France in 2013 reported on a similar fibrous substance which fell from the sky in 2013 after suspicious cloud formations were seen in West Texas and Arizona. An example was seen in 2015 when many reported seeing large clumps of filament descending from the sky and sticking to everything. So think about this. I'm not saying that this is their response, but I'm saying this is the types of things that are going on. This is Morgellons. This is chemtrails. When you actually do deeper research into Morgellons, and I've talked to a few people about this, it's crazy the effects that it has on them. People talk about it feeling like it moves inside them, like they have an entity or a worm crawling inside them. It's crazy. But these fibers are falling out. Who knows what they do to the environment? Let's start there. To people, to your biology. There's a number of different things that go on with this. You right? You see. And now we have, again, more things happening with Fukushima. After we have our own American Fukushima, which requires all of this soup of chemicals that we're dealing with. Let's take a listen.
Less than 24 hours after a 7.1 magnitude earthquake pummeled Mexico City, another tremor has occurred off the east coast of Japan. The 6.1 magnitude quake struck roughly 170 miles east of the shuttered Fukushima nuclear plant at roughly 2:30 a.m. local time, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. Its hypocenter, the underwater locus of the quake, happened at a depth of about 6 miles. Like Mexico, Japan is located in what is considered an active earthquake region. The country is influenced by the slipping and sliding of several of Earth's tectonic plates, including the North American plate, Pacific plate, Philippine Sea plate, and Eurasia plate. Whenever these pieces of crust grind or butt up against one another, earthquakes happen. This is a developing story.
Yes, and everything is a developing story. That's why whenever we were seeing some of those earthquakes in Mexico, the discharge from the plates were creating some of the lightning coming from the ground up. It's crazy. It's definitely crazy. So let's keep this in mind. Again, more natural disasters. The perfect way for these people to militarize them and to politicize these events. one of the things that I kind of touched on at the start of the show is how, we're talking about a militarized homeland security right there, beyond Harvey and Irma, militarizing homeland security in the climate change area. And this is why we have this video of this amphibious vehicle rolling through Florida. Let me read this because this is important. This is again how we're going to see, I don't want to say the one world army or anything like that, but how we're going to again see more of the earth taking a precedence over human life, where our existence is kind of dependent upon the earth, as the Georgia Guidestones said, living in harmony with the earth. So let me get into this. I put it up September 18th. It's from Truth Out. It says, deployed to Houston area to assist in Hurricane Harvey relief efforts. The U.S. military forces hadn't even completed their assignments when they were hurriedly dispatched to Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands to face Irma, the fiercest hurricane ever recorded in the Atlantic Ocean. Florida Governor Rick Scott, who had sent members to the state National Guard to devastated Houston, anxiously recalled them while putting in place emergency measures for his own state. A small flotilla of naval vessels, originally sent to waters off Texas, was similarly redirected to the Caribbean, while specialized combat units were drawn from as far as Colorado, Illinois, Rhode Island, and were rushed to Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Meanwhile, members of the California National Guard were being mobilized to fight wildfires raging across the state as much as across to the west as we talked about, during the hottest summer on record. Think of this as the new face of Homeland Security. Everything that I said there, rushing people off to go deal with these issues. There's not enough firefighters. There's not enough National Guard. They're literally calling in the military. Think of this as the new face of Homeland Security, containing the damage of America's seacoasts, forests, and other vulnerable areas caused by extreme weather events made all the more frequent and destructive thanks to man-made climate change. This is a war that won't have a name, but yet not in the Trump era, but it will be no less real for that. This is what we're talking about. This is why I say man-made climate change, where we're talking about what comes after weather modification. This is exactly it. This is the linchpin, the Rosetta Stone of this episode. Militarizing Homeland Security. Collapsing the old world order is upon this. We no longer need all this freedom that we have right now. I don't have kids. I know I have a wide variety of listeners who have kids and are kids themselves. Whenever I have kids, they won't know the freedoms that we have. When we're talking about Trump supporters and Black Lives Matter uniting, that shouldn't be so hard. Why is it so hard to talk? Why is it so hard to heal? Okay? And we have a lot of things going on in this country. I'm not here to talk about that. We still have a lot more information to get into. What I'm trying to talk about is this. They are going to use these types of things to implement more martial law. FEMA, Red Cross, National Guard. This is why the administrator Brock Long has said we're going to be here for years. This is why when you jump back to 2015, when we covered Jade Helm 15, this is again a linchpin of what I'm talking about. This information, all this stuff is in accordance. Okay, let me try to finish up this article so we can get into more. This is a war that won't have a name. Not yet, not in the Trump era, but it will be no less real for that. Quote, the firepower of the federal government was being trained on Harvey as William Brock Long, administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, put it in a blunt expression of the warlike approach. But don't expect any of the military officials involved in such efforts to identify climate change as the source of their new strategic orientation, not while Commander-in-Chief Donald Trump sits in the Oval Office refusing to acknowledge the reality of global warming or its role in heightening the intensity of major storms. Not while he continues to stock his administration top to bottom with climate change deniers. So, that's a whole nother discussion. I'm not talking about any of this type of climate change. I'm talking about weather modification, geoengineering, HARP, cloud seeding, chemtrails, and all this other stuff that we are talking about. That is, to me, climate change. They will use these things, creating these uninhabitable areas, to implement martial law, as we've documented in the show and on the page as well. When we're looking at all this stuff, again, we have to see how, because of these crises, these problems that we have going on in the entire world, we are seeing a brand new form of government take place. Right there, FEMA conducting mandatory nationwide tests on September 27th. FEMA says that there is nothing to worry about and that this is only a test. I think people forget, and I said this, I don't know how people got it confused. People forget that, you get emergency updates on your phone all the time. So FEMA hijacking your radio and your television, that's easy. Your phone and everything else, nationwide test, that will be crazy. So if this does take place, we'll document it as well. This is crazy. But this is an article from IntelliHub. It's by Shepard and Bellis. It says that the Federal Emergency Management Agency will be taking over the radio, television, cable, and direct broadcast satellite systems for 1 minute on September 27th as a part of a, quote, mandatory nationwide test of the emergency alert system. The test will take place on Wednesday, 2:20 p.m. EDT, according to FEMA's official website. The agency put out a bulletin Tuesday which instructs the general public not to worry, quote, this is only a test. FEMA maintains that the system offers a prompt way to notify people of impending disasters such as an asteroid strike, global thermonuclear war, a terror attack, hurricane, earthquake, or another major disaster. This is martial law. This is where they're telling you what's happening. Where they're, again, saying they're going to be there for years, setting up base in Texas. If they can turn Texas green, if they can have some uninhabitable areas to work with this shadowy, deep state, military industrial complex that is working to create this COG, this continuity of government, to basically overthrow our own form of government, to let all of this other stuff come in, they can do that. That's what I see. If you ask me, that's what I see taking place. This is why, again, we're talking about Jade Helm 15, them creating this network of information, again, back to the districts, breaking the country up, understanding like how different parts of the country will respond. They don't consider New Mexico hostile. They consider Texas hostile, but they don't consider New Mexico hostile. I think they consider California not hostile, and a lot of these different things. They're planning to take on the civilians. This is what comes after. They want to try to maintain order. They will create destabilization. They will use these natural disasters to create this destabilization, to come through with these types of situations, these solutions. There's no way 2 weeks ago, this would have been okay, or 3 weeks ago, this would have been okay. But because of these natural disasters, post-hurricanes, Harvey, Irma, Maria, and Jose, this is what we get. We get this separate government that's working to maintain order. As I said before, where are these people going to go? What's going to happen to all these people who were affected by these storms, by these natural disasters? You see, our debt toppling out at 20 trillion, 700 billion in military spending, 700 billion in unpaid mortgage balances in Harvey and Irma areas. Where are these people going to go who are affected by this? You see. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the socio-economic reformation, this Equifax hack, the universal basic income, DACA even, and some wartime movements. All these things are, again, what comes after this weather modification. The chaos that this brings. Where are we going to focus now? Where are our resources going to go to now? We're throwing out money like we have it. We're throwing out money even though we have Russia and China literally dropping the petrodollar, finding ways to bypass it. So yeah, there's a lot of crazy things happening. I don't really know how to explain it, but when looking at it as a whole, all I can really keep seeing is just that, the socio-economic reformation, Agenda 21, and this new world order that they're trying to create. They have to collapse the old one to where we don't so much care about things like TV or like cable, to where we don't care about things like fossil fuels, to where why is the vegan movement popping? Why is that rising so fiercely? Because people are seeing the effects that humanity has on the earth. You're killing animals to sustain your own. Sustain your own life. You're eating something else's life force. There are a number of things going on, and like I said, this is all part of this great turning, the paradigm shift, the collapsing of the old world order, so that they can come in with this new world order. So many different things are happening all at once. It really does become overwhelming trying to explain it all. But like I said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about just that, the socio-economic reformation, things like DACA, or DACA, however you want to pronounce it, the wartime movements, and this Equifax hack, and how a lot of other people are starting to talk about this universal basic income. I have a theory on that, but we're taking a quick break, and we'll come back talking about that. This is Fractions of Freedom. Stay tuned. Does anybody else think it's funny how much of a joke Hillary Clinton has become? It's like we have bigger issues to deal with besides you trying to tell us how you lost, Hillary. We literally have the world going to hell in a handbasket. We don't need you to write another book to tell us how you lost. She's like literally become a joke. Like, I don't want to sound like a jerk, you know, I really don't. But it's like she's become a joke. But she's useful. That's the problem. And I'll get into her and Obama lately because I feel like they're two sides of the same coin, you know. But it to me, it's hilarious how much of a joke she's really become. But that's the problem, you know, because she's working with it. It's crazy. It's crazy. But you know, you mentioned her and her "What Happened" book. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. But in all seriousness, let's get back into this. You know, we don't need to hear about what happened, Hillary. We have $700 billion of unpaid mortgages in Hurricane Harvey and Irma disaster areas. This is crazy. This is crazy. So before I get into all this stuff, because again, like I said before the break, we see Donald Trump throwing out money like it's growing on trees. And I know America prints its own money, but one of the things we're going to be getting into in this segment, you know, is how countries like Russia, Venezuela, and China are getting off the petrodollar. We're seeing the BRICS nation rise, you know, and now they're starting to work with things like cryptocurrencies. It's crazy. This is the socio-economic reformation. Where are our priorities? We care about the earth. We care about the planet. We care about, air quotes, controlled abundance for people. This is their intention. Looking at things again, Agenda 2030. Goal number 8, promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. Build resilient, and this is goal number 9, build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Goal number 10, reduce inequality within and among countries. Goal number 11 is make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. This is again why we start talking about the socio-economic reformation. Where are we putting our resources? Getting us into these population centers, these smart cities, these smart grids that are easily monitored. And I still need to do another mini cast for you guys where we condense this information. We have places like Google coming up with their own smart city. Or Alphabet, my bad. Alphabet coming up with smart cities, places in Colorado that are using the technocratic method to measure how much people are putting out and to try to conserve. It's crazy. It is crazy. But just this, looking at how there's $700 billion of damage just there. Mortgages, they're saying you got to give us your money. People are still expected to pay. I mean, in Florida, we heard today, right there, ticketed, or Florida residents warned they'll be ticketed for hurricane damaged homes. So these people who are basically running from devastated areas, they're going to be ticketed for not being there. We've talked about this too with the forces of nature law, that law that went in September 1st. Where these people basically won't be able to file insurance claims for these types of things. Let's read this. It's from the Anti-Media. It's put up September 21st, and it says, as at a time when South Floridians rocked by Hurricane Irma were still surveying the damage to their properties, the county of Miami-Dade apparently thought it was appropriate to begin handing out safety notices. Celso Perez told WSVN-TV that he, his family, and his neighbors were starting to clear fallen trees from the streets after the storm passed through at 9 in the morning on Monday. Hours later, in the afternoon, Perez got a visit from the county, quote, and we thought he was there to help us or offer some type of assistance with the trees. Maybe he was going to bring us ice or something, Perez told WSVN. Instead, the official slapped a safety notice on the only part of Perez's fence still standing. Quote, I laughed. He said, I thought he was joking. You are kidding, right? We just had a hurricane 6 hours ago. No, I'm not kidding. I have to cite you for this. I just laughed. Okay, whatever. Knock yourself out. But Perez stopped laughing when the official told him that he would be writing a report and would be back to check on the property. Perez told WSVN that the man said he'd have to write me a fine if the fence wasn't up to code by then. At this time, the officer was out here. We didn't have power, we didn't have food, we didn't have ice. He is crazy, ridiculous, Perez said, and adding that it's not like I can go to the Home Depot because all the stores were closed. The South Floridian says he understands that there is a lot of work that needs to be done, but the county's rush to issue warnings were inappropriate. Quote, give us a minute to breathe. Let us get our power back on, and I wouldn't mind if they told me that a few days down the line, but in due time. But it bothers me that they came out here just a few hours after the storm had passed, on the morning issue of restoring power. Reason noted that at the time Miami-Dade was handing out citations. The WSVN investigation found Perez was far from alone. The county had handed out 600 pool barriers and 177 electrical hazard notices in the hours after Irma. 1,510 homes and businesses were still without power. So they're sitting there handing out tickets saying, you know what, if you don't pay for this damage, we're going to fine you. You have to pay more damages. Again, this is that insanity that's happening. This is that $700 of unpaid mortgage balances in Hurricane Harvey places. These people can't live here, so why are they going to pay there? You see, I'm going to play this, and we're going to get into this article that I put up on the website. You guys can go read it. And if anything, I will put this in the link so you guys can go read it if you want as well, because I'll only get to about half of it. But it says, even as the damages from Hurricane Harvey and Irma are still being tailed, a preliminary assessment released last week by Black Knight Financial Services estimated that as many as 300,000 borrowers in the vicinity of Houston could become delinquent on their loans, and 160,000 could become seriously delinquent or more than 90 days late past due. That number is roughly 4 times the original prediction because new disaster zones were designated and more homes were flooded. Officials released water from reservoirs to protect dams, according to CNBC's Diana Olick. In total, the number of mortgage properties in Texas disaster zones is 1.18 million, with Black Knight adding that the Houston disaster zone contains twice as many mortgage properties than Katrina zones, with 4 times the unpaid balance. Wow, that is crazy. That is crazy. Putting that Hurricane Harvey damage in context, and after Hurricane Katrina, delinquencies in Louisiana and Mississippi disaster areas spiked by 25%. The same could happen in Houston as borrowers without flood insurance weigh their options and decide to walk away from the property while they get some federal relief. If rebuilding would cost more than the principal in their homes, they could decide to walk away, according to Olick. So basically what they're talking about is how 3.1 million mortgage properties are damaged, 1.8 places that are devastated in this disaster zone, 300,000 borrowers that are racking up $700 billion worth of damage. And this is the crazy thing when looking at this, because again, we're having $700 billion in mortgages, right? That's just mortgages alone, not even just the damages, right? We're having $290 billion of damage done in I think in damages alone. So mortgages and then damages, and then how are these people going to get paid? How are these institutions going to get paid? What is this going to go do to our economy? I'm sure if people were able to, if we did a study, we could find that a lot of people that were involved or who were affected by this Equifax hack and by this hurricane, they're having their Social Security stolen, and they're also having their house destroyed. Where are these people going to go? What money, what programs do they have? Their Social Security got hacked, and they didn't even get told. Social Security got hacked, and their homes got destroyed. You see right there, AccuWeather predicts Harvey and Irma will cost the U.S. economy a devastating $290 billion. $290 billion. But let's take a look at that. It's official. The U.S. debt finally tops $20 trillion, jumps by $380 billion in one day. $380 billion because you add on the $15 billion that Donald Trump donated to hurricane relief. Add that to the $290 billion, you get $315 billion. There's probably some transaction fees there that rack it up to the additional $3 billion. But we're topping out at $20 trillion. Here, and this is after Rothschild pulled out his money. It's talking about a period of monetary accommodation, and maybe this was it. Maybe whenever he did this, that was our indication. Just like with 9/11, when they pulled out all that gold right beforehand, maybe that was our signal. Maybe that was a light, because it's going to start happening now. He didn't really disclose how much he actually let out. They just said I think he took out close to like 32% of his investings, 37%. It doesn't really talk about it, but it's an article from a SHTF plan, and it was put up August 30th. But they basically say how Rothschild just pulled out a lot of money out of the U.S. economy, talking about a period of monetary accommodation may well be coming to an end. So pulling out his money, and then we have all this stuff going on. $290 billion in damages, $700 billion in unpaid mortgages. And now on top of this, and this is what kind of blows my mind when looking at it again as a whole, where are we getting this money from? Where are we getting this money from? And amid deep cuts to social programs, Senate approves $700 billion in military spending. Think about that. We have all this damage done to the economy, and they're approving more war spending, more endless war spending. This is from Mint Press News. I put it up September 19th. It's by Jake Johnson. It says, where were the pundits and elected lawmakers who complain about the cost of providing health care to all Americans when the Senate voted to spend $700 billion on the military? Many critics were raising questions this Monday after the Senate, in what was portrayed as yet another indication of bipartisan support for endless war, overwhelmingly approved the 2018 National Defense Authorization Act, which will dump a large sum of money into the military budget, even President Donald Trump asked for, while also authorizing the production of 94 F-35 jets, 24 more than the Pentagon requested. This is the military-industrial complex. This is these people. They're building up their war machine. This is why we're having more gear given to the police. More militarized gear being given to the police because they're getting upgrades. They spent $900 million on next generation artificial intelligence chips quietly. This is that breakaway civilization. This is that deep state. This is that, again, military industrial complex. These people who are just siphoning off our money to try to control us. These are those people, as I mentioned at the start of the show, that control the FEMA, the National Guard, the Army, the Navy. These people, they're literally the front groups for these merchant marines, for these mercenaries, for Blackwater, for the privatized military. This is that military-industrial complex. Twice than what was requested. I'm not talking about arming ISIS or any of that type of stuff. I'm talking about funneling money to this martial law, this I don't want to say deep state coup to sound like everybody else. But what we see forming over here, okay, so passage of the NDAA, which this year approves a $700 billion defense budget, an annual increase of $80 million, is something of an automated process in Washington, one that often flies under the radar, and garners little opposition. However, with support for Medicare for all, free public college tuition soaring, many are calling attention to the hypocrisy of pundits who yell at the cost of single-payer health care providing debt-free higher education while remaining entirely silent about the war budget. Medicare, health care, and all this other stuff, that's something that we don't really touch on the show. Same way we don't really necessarily touch immigration, racism, and all this other nonsense that I see taking place. But I'll use this as a way to kind of springboard, if anything, into Chicago and California being Trump-free zones, and how this will create, more destabilization, more immigration, more clashes of the civilizations, economic turmoil, and everything else that we see happening. I'm not being racist in any of these things. I'm saying, look at the facts. Do we need more people in here whenever half of Americans are basically living paycheck to paycheck? Look at the education. Look at how it's churning out mental cases. It's not there to actually educate people. This is the public indoctrination system, and now it's actually going out into the streets and indoctrinating more people. Okay, and so these people that are in these Trump-free zones, California and Chicago, right? They're going to vote. I hate talking about the two-party system. They're going to vote Democrat. They're going to be part of this democratically elected dictatorship. Whoever's going to run that, these people, they're going to be the overwhelming majority. This is why we have, and I'll come back to this. I will come back to military stuff. I will come back to spending in the military-industrial complex. We need to talk about the destabilization that is happening here in our country, and how things like DACA, like this spending, like this destabilization that we see happening, this economic turmoil, so to speak, how all of this plays in. Right here, we had Obama coming out. Not really coming out. He's been out since he was with Michael, I guess, Michelle, because she's a tranny, and so Obama's gay. That was the joke. But anyway, we have Obama meeting with world leaders publicly. And this is how Obama and Hillary work. You have Obama in the public eye, you have Hillary in the private eye. She's over there doing the sketchy stuff. They're two sides of the same coin. As I mentioned before, Obama is working with different leaders, different people from around the world to try to get a sense of what to do next, to try to lead that way, to take to extend his presidency through more communal actions. I know that kind of sounds crazy, but what do we have Hillary Clinton doing? She's not really leaving. Writing books, talking about what happened, saying that husbands, wives only voted for Trump because their husbands told them to, basically endorsing this Trump-induced psychosis, this politically induced psychosis, this insanity, all this crazy stuff. By them being here, they're just saying that it is okay to act this way. It is okay to do these things. It is okay to have Trump-free zones. It is okay to undermine the government. Hey, trust me, I'm right there with you, brother. But looking at this, how these people are not hijacking, but co-opting a revolution. They're manipulating it for their own intents and purposes. Yes, a lot of people, and I've said this before, Obama started this destabilization, this degradation of society. I wasn't alive for Bush. I couldn't really tell. But he got us into wars. Obama kind of got this civil instability going on, and now we have Hillary. And this is one of the things I can put in the website as well for you guys, where we found out that Hillary was funding Antifa. Okay, so if you have Obama going around from country to country talking about climate change, doing community organizing, setting up foundations, creating different ways for him to have control on the global scale, and then you have Hillary within the country creating this destabilization, they're basically they're basically collapsing us from within. They're using the image of America to destroy America. You see, this is why we have those hand-in-hand hurricane relief telethon. This is what I'm trying to say. When we're looking at what comes after weather modification, what will they do with it? How are they trying to create a organization to all this chaos? You see, and this is, again, to me, more distractions. Really, it is. And I can put like I said, I can put this article up there for you. Would you look at that? Sensitive content. That's strange. I haven't even had that happen on my own social media page. They're saying that this photo contains content which some people might find offensive and disturbing. So again, censorship. We've been dealing with that for years, but that's perfectly all right. Let's see it anyway. See the photo. It says the Federal Elections Committee says that Hillary Clinton funneled $1 million of campaign money, campaign funds, to Antifa. And you guys can go look this up. I'll put this in the website or in the description bar below. It says Hillary Clinton funneled $1 million from her campaign fund and gave it to the resistance groups such as Antifa and I think Indivisible as well, according to FEC documents. Think about that. Funding the destabilization so that they can, again, come through with the order. This is their Hegelian dialectic. Problem, reaction, solution. They create the problems that we see happening here domestically and as well globally so that they can come through with the solution. So let's get into this because I want to hurry up and get through this so we can talk about these other wartime movements and things like China announcing that they're going to ban gas and that they're buying oil with gold and everything else. So let's get with the joke of Hillary Clinton. Hillary's super PAC, Onward Together, gave $800,000 to domestic terrorist groups in order to disrupt and undermine the government. OffendAmerica.com reports amid doubts that Hillary's PAC was doing anything at all with the donations that it was receiving, Daily Caller reached out to 5 different Antifa-linked groups, and only one was willing to deny donations from Onward Together. Soros-linked group Indivisible denied receiving financial support from Clinton or Onward Together. Quote, Onward Together has not given any financial support to us. Helen Calla, an Indivisible spokeswoman or spokesperson, wrote to the Daily Caller. Calla added that Clinton's group has been, quote, amplifying and highlighting our work through their digital networks, which she explained has consisted of, quote, retweeting Indivisible, and they've highlighted our work via their emails to their list too, according to the Federal Election Commission. documents, Hillary Clinton transferred $800,000 from her failed political campaign, Hillary for America, to their new super PAC, Onward Together, before she announced the existence of the PAC in May 2017. Amid other disturbing details, it's now been revealed that Onward Together is a 501c4 social welfare organization, which means that it is not required to disclose many of the details of its operation to the public or disclose who its donors are or who its donors are. By receiving funds and then furnishing the funds to Antifa terrorist groups, Clinton may have implicated many of her supported in crime. Hillary Clinton, now too old to run for office, will go back to doing what she does best: round up money for anonymous sources and then use the money to influence elections and peddle power. Which is very true, because that's what I'm saying. She's trying to funnel the destabilization. And this is, again, more money being wasted on nonsense. More money being thrown away to further us into this chaos. Like I said before, cuts to social programs. They're spending $700 billion in military spending. So let's get back into that. Let's get back into the wartime stuff that we see taking place. Now that we've finished the joke known as Hillary Clinton, Hillary the witch, rotten Clinton, the rotten witch Clinton. Let's get back into this. Sorry, I need to stop trolling on this woman. China announces ban on gas-powered cars. Why is this important? Because again, we're seeing them take the reins of Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. Is this the end of oil? Military war movements. And that's why, and I know this doesn't seem like a wartime movement, but to me, it's in that same kind of category. We're hearing how the U.S. jets are dropping live bombs on the Korean Peninsula. That's kind of crazy. We're hearing how Putin orders an end to U.S. dollar trades at Russian seaports. They're establishing a military base in Israel. That's the first time ever. There's a lot of stuff going on right there. Let's take a look at it. U.S. jets dropped live bombs at Korean Peninsula in massive show of force. I know Kim Jong-un, he's doing what he does. That's it. That's his insanity. Let him keep going on the way that he is. Someone's going to have to deal with him. But we're still seeing large economic and militaristic problems take place. As I've been saying throughout the entirety of the seasons in the show so far, we are going to see a trade war with China and a physical confrontation with Russia. Let's get into some more of these war movements. $700 billion in military spending. The authorization of the new National Defense Authorization Act. $900 million in next generation AI chips. What could that possibly be for? Because they're trying to create super soldiers. They're doing it. They are definitely doing it. The Pentagon being busted for funneling billions to ISIS. North Korea was actually attempting to try to negotiate with America, but ironically enough, we ignore their offer. North Korea also began firing missiles over Japan. And we have 20,500 troops in total sent to Afghanistan. They sent a deployment of 3,500 on September 7th, and on September 15th, literally like a week later, they sent 6,000. They doubled that. So I'm sure, given the time, if I didn't catch the article, I'm sure they'll send another branch or another troop, another deployment. You see. This is the wartime movements. This is all this chaos that we see taking place. But one of the things I want to get to with the little bit of time that we have left in this show is just that how China will buy oil with gold-backed currency, bypassing the U.S. dollar, and how, again, we are seeing right here as well, Venezuela just stopped accepting U.S. dollars for oil as countries join forces to kill the U.S. petrodollar. We're seeing that happen. The dollar devaluation. They are trying to take down the dollar. So why are we throwing out money like there's no problem? Why is this not being highlighted as a big issue? You see, China trying to bypass the dollar, that means that we're no longer doing business with them. Right there, China moves on New World Order, will buy oil with gold-backed currency, bypassing the U.S. dollar. On top of that, again, because we're seeing them trying to end oil, we're seeing them trying to end gas, we're seeing them trying to end fossil fuels. We're also talking about how Russia is going to end trade with the U.S. dollar, or stop doing deals with the U.S. dollar at seaports. They're going to stop doing deals. This is why Venezuela joined them. We are going to see more of these types of things take place, because this is the socio-economic reformation. This is them whenever they are right there. Putin orders to end U.S. dollar trade at Russian seaports. This is to end fossil fuels, dollars, and everything else. This is part of, again, the socio-economic reformation, the technocracy, to where they are moving things forward with sustainable energy, renewable energy, and trying to sell these things back to us. This is why whenever people talk about, or whenever we have China announcing the ban on gas-powered cars, they're saying, and France did this as well, they're saying that they are in accordance with Agenda 21, with Agenda 2030, and Agenda 2050. This green revolution, the Georgia Guidestones, as I mentioned before, them literally trying to figure out a way to where we are living in harmony with the world. This is why they're creating autonomous cars, autonomous vehicles, driverless cars, so to speak, smart cars, hybrids, electric cars, and all these things, Teslas, you name it, because they want us to stop being such a hindrance on the planet. What comes after all of this chaos? This is their New World Order. As we see China trying to lead the way, and what's crazy too is a week before this, I think, a week before this, they actually were able to clean up the pollution in China. Basically a middle finger to America whenever we were going through all this chaos with Hurricane Irma and Harvey. They kind of came through and said, well, we were able to clean up our waters with all the chaos that we had going on. But this is what we're seeing, the shift of power, this paradigm shift. One of the things that I wanted to touch on again that I kind of like glossed over is this Equifax hack, and how it kind of has a weird similarity to universal basic income. And this is something that we see on the horizon. I see it on the horizon. Hawaii already said that they're going to conduct these types of things, and Alaska's already doing it. It's going on in Finland and across Europe as well. This concept of, and it's not that, it's not free money. This Equifax hack is the most disastrous data breach in history, because now hackers have the credit information of 143 million Americans. And what's crazy too is they actually forgot they didn't forget 1.8 million in stock was sold before the cyber attack was disclosed. That was crazy. 143 million social security numbers have been hit, and they're out there. Why am I talking about this in relation to the socio-economic reformation, China, and the universal basic income? Well, let's say, again, when looking at people who are affected by Hurricane Harvey and Irma, in Texas and Florida, let's say they have their houses destroyed and they also have their social security number hacked. They're going to need some kind of financial income, some kind of money coming in, something. These old people, they can't work. They're not going to want to work. No questions asked. They go sign up for these programs, and bing, bang, boom, they can start with this program. They can start with implementing this, giving people money to help with the restoration and the sustainable economy. I don't know. I really haven't really fleshed out all the details when looking at it, but understanding that there is so many different things happening right now, that we are in the storm, that we are in the mix of it all, and that this is just, I'm not saying it's just beginning. It's literally, like I said, what comes after. What are they going to do with all this chaos? What happens whenever we have our country shut down? Or whenever everything starts to change? This is the collapsing of the old world order. However, That's all I really have for you guys. I know I kind of went over a lot, and if anything, because I have all these notes and these articles queued up for you guys, I'll try to put some of the stuff in there so you can go back and track it. There's a lot of stuff that I wanted to cover, but I couldn't because I get caught up in the time, the way things work, you know. But I hope I clarified things enough. We are in the thick of it. We are right in the center of everything that is going on. But that's all I really have for you guys. I want to say thank you guys for tuning into this episode. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below. Or if you want to think about becoming an exclusive member, check us out on Patreon. Any kind of support helps. $1 here, $1 there. It really gets us to where we're going. You know, that's all I can really say. I'm not here to try to tell you guys what to think or what to do, but I am here to try to raise awareness about all these things that we have to do together. But that's it. This is Noise Era. I want you guys to stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, out.